The final third of this anime feels vastly different than the first 2/3, and there's a good reason for that.
As I mentioned last time, Toshio Ono mostly stepped down from his head writing position, only coming back to write 4 more plot-relevant episodes for this series.
And again, while I admire the guy for what he gives us later, sometimes these things are best left to the professionals.
Though that's not to say it was perfect, as the significant shift in writing staff did end up leading to several plot holes and inconsistencies.
What do I mean by this? Well, let's take a look at Sweet Precure episodes 30 through 48 and see how this series plays us out.
With the healing chest in hand, the team was trying to figure out ways to use their new 6,000 yen toy. Hibiki thinks it could help her with her tests.
Hibiki? Crescendo tone? Nani nani? そういうことは自分の力で頑張るのです。
Crescendo tone is best MacGuffin.
Also, gotta say, one of the best benefits of the change in writing staff is the shift in Hami's personality to being a bit more of a sadist. Hibiki tries to forget about her troubles when... Oh no, did Peter Griffin make that stupid wish again?
I wish I had my own theme music.
And apparently she wasn't the only one affected, as Aqua and Otokuchi's piano started playing music out of nowhere. Ellen also gives us an early preview of one of the few actually entertaining bits from Happiness Charge. As it turns out, this was all the doing of the crescendo tone trying to cheer everyone up. Well, everyone except for Aqua. I think she was just trolling her. She even does this for random civilians.
And no, that's not the sort of reaction you should be having, kids. It should be more along the lines of, oh my god, my glove is possessed! Quick, somebody give me some holy water to wash his hand with! Ah!
This eventually leads into a fight with a negatone formed from Hibiki's test, who then proceeds to quiz the Precure. Get used to seeing this sort of monster, by the way, because he won't be the last. Hibiki tries to defeat it using the healing chest, but it's too much power for her to use on her own. So instead, they defeat the monster by giving it a quiz of their own, while also breaking the 4th wall.
Okay, is Yoshimi Narita actually a pseudonym for Deadpool?
Following up on this, the Precure decided in order to use the chest properly, they needed to start building up their fortitude so that they could use it all at once. Thus, they suit up to go train in the mountains.
And apparently, Ellen became a fan of Kikaider between episodes. Good taste.
Once they reach their training camp, they try each of their own little training regimens. Hibiki tries karate. Kanade tries jazzercising. And Ellen suggests zazen.
Again, good taste there, Ellen.
Yeah, in case you ever wondered what the Aizen and Aizen zone derives from, well, there you go. And as someone who actually trained at a Buddhist monastery for a while, I can tell you my greatest obstacle was always this.
Though you girls do realize there's a part of the meditation where you can get up and walk off your sleepy feet, right?
No, instead, they decide to do the more symbolically significant thing and all get up at once, while also likely breaking their ankles due to lack of blood in their feet. But yeah, in the end, the training lets the girls grow even closer and share in a really nice scene together where they take in the sunrise. Through this, they're able to defeat the monster of the week with a new triple team finisher using the healing chest. Episode 32 takes place at a flea market. Guessing they're there to confiscate any knockoff Precure toys. Nah, they're just there to sell their own junk like everyone else.
Then why are you just leaving it out like that? I mean, I get that they're keeping an eye on it and everything, but why not put it in a bag or something just down the side of, say, Trios the Miner and Worse Drag than Joseph Joestar? Yeah, like that.
Luckily, Kiryu's manages to snatch it up after Trios the Mire themselves lose it. Then again, considering she had a decoy chest prepared already, I think it's safe to assume she was planning on stealing it herself. However, after having a little talk with the crescendo tone and recognizing the team's determination to protect everyone, Muse decides to give it back to them. Aqua apparently finding it near the fountain and returns it. Following this, we do get a filler episode, though a pretty good one, with Hibiki debating whether or not she'll compete in a piano competition after learning her father was going to be one of the judges. She was afraid that she might get nervous while playing right in front of him and would mess up.
Considering what happened the last time he judged her piano playing, yeah, that's not a baseless concern.
The best part of this episode is that in spite of it technically being a Hibiki episode, all three of the Cures get decent development by having talks with their parental figures. In Ellen's case, it was with Otokuchi. They basically all boil down to talks about what they want to do with their lives.
Again, an unexpected early preview of what was to come.
It's a good episode, as even Hibiki's father was nowhere near as obnoxious as he usually is. Moreover, all this talk about fathers was kind of foreshadowing upcoming events. Episode 34 finally sees Mephisto get off his lazy ass and do something again after 13 episodes of just ordering his guys around and twiddling his fingers, I guess. He creates a King Ghidorah negatone to lure out the Precure.
Really don't want to have to hear that from you, dude.
Yet, regardless of the fact that he's been about as effective of a villain as Megatron with a sore throat,
too bad! He's blown his vocal components. I guess that makes me the new leader!
Mephisto manages to one-up the Precure. This draws out Cure Muse, but for some reason she remains on the defensive, never actually engaging Mephisto or Ghidorah. Regardless, her bravery motivates the Precure to bring out the big guns. They make quick work of the negatone and are about to do the same to Mephisto when...
Nani?
During the confusion, Mephisto just breaks out a big gourd thing and sucks up all of the notes.
Why didn't you use that thing earlier? Or hell, why didn't you give it to Siren and Trios the Minor at the beginning of this series?
But yeah, following this, the Precure were left in shock over Muse suddenly turning on them in favor of Mephisto. About 14 episodes late on that critique, guys. They even end up asking the Crescendo Tone for advice on whether or not they should fight a fellow Precure. She doesn't give them an answer and instead asks them what they think they should do as Precure themselves.
Now, if this were Tyson Yonemura, we know what the answer would be. They'd fight each other for the hell of it in spite of how little sense it makes and how much it goes against their moral compass. But no, this is anime Yonemura, so the writing here is going to be a lot more palatable.
Meanwhile, Mephisto tries to complete the Melody of Sorrow, only to realize they're still short a few notes. Thus, he tries to collect the remaining notes himself, and even though the Precure weren't in the immediate area, he creates a negatone for no real reason.
This is what happens when you micromanage, dude. You make all kinds of dumb mistakes. Well, more than usual in your case.
During the fight, the Precure realized that much like Ellen, Mephisto was likely being controlled by the headphones that he's been wearing since the beginning of the anime.
Well, duh.
Either way, they figure out the correct answer to the Crescendo Tone's question.
私は全ての人の幸せを守るためだと思う。
They defeat the negatone, but just as they're about to put the notes away, Mephisto again uses a tactic that he should have used from the start and absorbs the notes into himself, becoming a negatone in the process. He corners them, but Muse intervenes and speaks for the first time, and...
Really? We're doing this again? Alright.
No, Buzz. I am your father.
She throws off her disguise, including some really high heels that made her look much taller than she actually was. For you see, Muse is in fact the youngest human Precure to date at the age of 9. She was Ako Shirabe.
No joke here, this was actually a good reveal as it was actually hinted at.
Alright, the Vader twist was kind of stupid, but the Cure Muse mystery itself was handled well. They properly established 4 possible suspects and gave clues that it was Ako, including a scene in episode 34 where she managed to walk on some very high stilts hinting at the high heels.
It was a decent subplot, certainly a better mystery than some of its contemporaries in the 6th Ranger department.
Anyway, Mephisto flees upon seeing his daughter trying to fight against him. Episode 36 fully clarifies Ako's complicated family tree. As it turns out, on top of Mephisto being her father, she was also Aphrodite's daughter. Yeah, as it turns out, Mephisto was the former king of Majorland.
That's not true! That's improbable!
Oh, and Otokuchi is her grandfather on her mother's side. Yeah, they just get all that baggage out of the way in the first 5 minutes of the episode. Good job there, guys. But yeah, Aqua's desire to prevent her parents from essentially killing each other granted her the powers to become a Precure. Oh, and Ellen and Hummy didn't recognize her as their princess, mostly because of her glasses.
Oh, come on. Since when has anyone been able to maintain a secret identity with just glasses? Isn't that right, Clark?
But yeah, Aqua is in fact a princess Precure.
You know, in retrospect, I don't think this anime gets quite enough credit for inspiring so many future series.
We also finally get some backstory regarding Mephisto. He was possessed by the true big bad of the series when he tried to take back the healing chest by going into the evil forest alone.
He never thought to take any of his royal guard with him into the evil forest. Was this guy ever a good ruler, or did Aphrodite have to do all the work?
Well, even the big bad of the series agrees with me and just rips out the remainder of Mephisto's free will and just have him
Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do!
Understandably, Aqua was against fighting her own father at first, but after seeing her friends doing all they could to save him, she officially joins the team. She does still hesitate, but as a sort of final resolution to all their bickering at the beginning of the series, Hibiki and Kanade explain the importance of why people who are close to one another sometimes fight. They do it because they want to understand each other more, in ways that words alone can't express.
In other words, it's basically the Nanoha Takamachi school of befriending, minus a few explosions. Never mess with the White Devil.
Aqua's words reach her father and finally free him from the big bad's control. However, with Mephisto now out of the picture, one of Trios the Minor was now going to take over all of his bad guy duties, which of course turns out to be Falsetto?
Really? This dude who's pretty much done nothing all season? And wait.
If he was waiting to take Mephisto's place this whole time, then why did he participate in the note collection contest back in episode 18? Maybe you could argue the big bad made him a sleeper agent, but why bother with such nonsense? And again, why choose Falsetto? Basham has clearly been the standout of the trio. Well, whatever. Falsetto reveals himself as the new king of Minorland and says that he serves his master.
Wait, what was that?
Noise!
Okay, so Simple Gear might have taken a little bit more inspiration from this than I originally thought. Hold on, I gotta go deal with this.
For episode 37, we get a requisite Halloween episode where everyone dresses up, even Trios the Minor. Oh no wait, that's actually their new powered up forms.
If I didn't know any better, I think that Noise is really into multiple transformations. I wonder if that'll play into anything.
We also learn a little bit more about Noise, including how Otokuchi was the one who originally sealed him away. But at the last moment, Noise managed to escape, and since then has been using his servants to gather up the energy needed to unseal him, with the Melody of Sorrow meant to be the final concerto to his unsealing. Otokuchi had been working to complete his pipe organ as a countermeasure, and in order to support their cause, Mephisto had returned to Majorland as its king.
せめて私が奪ってしまった音符をトリオたちに渡してさえいなければ。お前は心を奪われていたのだ。悔いても仕方あるまい。
Yeah, it's not as though you going into the evil forest alone is what led to Noise's influence spreading, thereby putting everyone, including your own kingdom, through this hell. Seriously, if I lived in this kingdom, I'd be suggesting a little coup.
The rest of the episode provides some necessary character building for Akko. I mean, I think I was one of the few who actually kind of liked her when she was mostly just a snarky little kid, but here we get to see a bit more of an adorable side out of her. And again, since this is a Halloween episode, they do end up fighting a pumpkin monster.
Kind of sad that it would take until the Princess Precure film before this orange squash got some fair representation.
Anyway, we also get to see more of Akko's abilities unhampered by her cumbersome masked outfit. Which was good, as even though it was incomplete, the Melody of Sorrow managed to neutralize the healing chest. Following this, we get one more Akko-focused episode, this time focusing on her relationship with her family. It's honestly one of my favorite episodes of this season, as it truly highlights why, in spite of joining the team rather late into the series, Aqua truly embodies what it means to be a Precure. I'll bring it up more during the character analysis, but the basic plot is that while deciding what to do for her grandfather's birthday, a music box Aqua got for her parents gets turned into a negatone and Sota is taken hostage. Again.
I'm starting to think that this kid is in a competition with Hummy to see who could get kidnapped the most in one season.
Of course, they save the little brat, and Aqua wishes her grandfather a happy little reminder that his good hip was gonna go soon. She also befriends a really weird bird thing that she calls Pichan. Following this, Hummy makes probably the most terrifying faces of the season after discovering that most of their notes were gone. Thus, the Precure take a risk and try to recollect as many notes as they could using Otokuchi's pipe organ to lure as many hidden notes out into the open as possible. Of course, this also means that they're fair game for Trios the Minor, so it becomes a race against time to see who can gather them all, with the Precure winning out in the end. However, just as they think they've won, Tweety reveals his true colors and steals all of the notes. Yep, this weird little bird thing was in fact Noise. Not so much of a surprise when you realize he's voiced by Ryusei Nakao, the king of evil voices.
The dude could portray a little schoolgirl and still sound absolutely sinister.
お前の寿命もあと30分で尽きる。
This continues into the next episode where the team tried to figure out where the notes went. They correctly theorized it was the work of Noise himself and tried to find him, not realizing that he was right under their noses. This comes to a head when he tries to kill Otokuchi. The Precure narrowly rescue him, and when he sees the bird nearby, Otokuchi starts to put two and two together. Surprisingly, even Hibiki starts to catch on and uses a rendition of the Melody of Happiness to stun him. However, Aqua then comes in and, well...
Yeah, we all know where this is going.
They're going to tell her that her little feather friend is in fact Noise, but just because she's known the thing for a few days, she'll believe in Noise rather than her friends and family who she's known for years, and say that they're wrong, run off, thereby effectively ruining her character.
We've seen this cliche a million times before, so let's just rip off the band-aid and...
私おじいちゃんを信じる
Wait, what?
おじいちゃんは今まで私に絶対嘘をついたことがないの
No, Aqua, you're not doing this right. You're supposed to make a really dumb decision that's gonna complicate things for really contrived reasons, and what the hell am I even saying anymore?
I mean, I'm honestly shocked that they avoided one of the worst narrative pitfalls that many long-running series jump headfirst into.
Seriously, who wrote this episode? And of course... Okay, Yonimura, did you just not drink your coffee when you wrote the Tyson movies or something?
But yeah, the point of all of this was to show that above all else, Aqua loved and trusted her grandfather. It's actually a really touching episode that again shows what Aqua was fighting for. Nonetheless, Noise does still escape with help from Trios the Minor. The race to collect all of the notes had wound down to its finale with all but one of them in the villain's possession. It was inside the Precure's yellow fairy tone Fari. To hide him, they actually take a page from their Tokusatsu cousins and make the whole town believe they're filming an action movie, and invite everyone to participate as extras.
You know the Screen Actors Guild would not approve of this, right, girls?
This does lead to some decent slapstick, but ultimately their plan fails when Fari exposes himself to the villains after he falls for a very obvious bluff.
Oh good, Hami's not the only mascot character I get to complain about this season.
Seriously, they actually try to give this walking toy ad character development, even though all of the fairy tones have remained rather underdeveloped throughout the season. Whatever, the final note ends up in the villain's possession after a sudden interception by Noise. With all the notes in their possession, the villains seem to have won until 4 G-clefs on the melody just disappear. Yeah, apparently Aphrodite had slipped in 4 fake notes as the actual G-clefs needed to complete it were with the Precure inside of their transformation trinkets.
Okay, I think we need to do a quick little rundown on why this plot point doesn't make a whole lot of sense. First of all...
Have they also been using fake G-clefs for all of the Melody of Happiness concerts up until now? It's clear that Aphrodite didn't know who the Precure would turn out to be and therefore didn't know where the G-clefs were.
Or did they just have spare clefs in the back and we're just going to ignore them? More importantly,
if you knew Minorland would attack eventually and you don't seem to mind using fake notes during your big fancy open concerts, then why didn't you just replace most of, if not all of the notes with fakes?
It just don't add up!
Really, what I think they should be saying here should be more along the lines of, we had to do a lot of sloppy rewrites due to the tsunami forcing us to rush through certain plot points. Anyway, Falsetto sends off Bastrom and Baritone to retrieve them, which leads to slapstick, after the last episode was mostly nothing but slapstick. And unfortunately, I don't think they're quite as funny here. The comedy with these guys works when it's fast-paced and not overdone. Here though, I think their skits run just a minute too long and ultimately fall flat. Not helped by the fact that the animation in this episode was pretty awful. Anyway, seeing the failings of their lackeys, Noise and Falsetto come up with a new plan. They lure the Precure out into the opening using Seika as a hostage, only to reveal she and Juan were under Noise's control, and have them steal the Cure modules. However, as it turns out, they had only taken fakes as Aqua had switched them out, and then revealed this little fact to the villains.
Why would you tell them they're fakes? Just let Falsetto take them, and then Noise would probably release his control over Juan and Seika.
But nope, instead they just switch up their plans and use the girls as hostages. Akko, I think you're awesome, but sometimes your plans are every bit as asinine as your mother's. So they hand over the modules, but then comes the biggest bit of contrivance in this plot hole-ridden episode. Juan and Seika manage to break free of Noise's control.
These two normal civilians managed to break free from the direct control of the main villain of the series. And how long did it take for Siren to break free from his indirect control? Let's just wrap up this episode already.
So Baritone and Bastrom end up touching the modules, and the light from them changes them back to normal briefly, and they pull a face turn before being turned back into villains. Anyway, the next episode opens with Baritone and Bastrom having been seemingly captured and brought in by one of Major Land's soldiers.
Oh, well, that's good. Say, by any chance, did you check this soldier's name and rank? Because, you know, if you have a royal army, you should at least have some kind of system in place to quickly check his credentials. You know, just in case your enemies attempt a really obvious Trojan horse plan. The only competent member of this royal family is the daughter, and even she screws up sometimes.
The whole episode basically becomes a rescue mission with Minorland holding Aphrodite hostage in exchange for the G-Clefs. To the Precure's credit, they do come up with some pretty smart plans. I'm guessing the influence of that one episode that Parody 24 was still present. It eventually all breaks down into one big fight scene with the reformed Mephisto joining in and protecting his wife. And thankfully the animation, while not a Kodai Watanabe production, was still really good and leagues better than the last episode. As a sort of redemption for dragging them into this mess, Mephisto somehow absorbed Bastrom and Baritone's dark powers into himself. Yeah, they don't really explain how he did that, just that he falls into a coma to neutralize the dark energy from the two. However, he did neutralize Falsetto, who proceeded to just wipe the floor with the Precure thanks to his direct connection with Noise.
Funny, I thought his powers couldn't even overtake a couple of middle school girls. Yeah, seriously, I'm not getting over that. What the hell?
To make matters worse, he almost kills the newly face-turned Baritone and Bastrom. Left with no other options, the Precure surrendered to G-Clefs. The Melody of Sorrow was complete, and Noise's final plan was nigh. Following an episode that ended with the evil laughter of the demonic cuckoo bird, we get a Christmas episode.
Oh, okay. What?
Yeah, I don't know why, but Noise just let the depowered good guys go because plot, I guess. I mean, I guess he's just letting them enjoy their final days with their families to give them a little bit of hope before sadistically ripping it all away. But come on, dude, you're just setting yourself up for defeat. Anyway, unsurprisingly, Noise and Falsetto decide to play the role of the Grinch and ruin Christmas, including giving every young viewer and their parents nightmares.
Well, I didn't need to sleep tonight.
And in keeping with his giant bird motif, Noise essentially becomes a cockatrice that petrifies everyone with just his voice. The Precure narrowly avoid this using a barrier created by Otokuchi's pipe organ. With the human world pretty much done for, Noise decided to move on to take over Major Land.
Well, if his targets include those creepy-ass instruments, then I'd actually consider him the real hero of the show.
Thus, he and Falsetto just fly off and leave behind a negatone created from the songbook to finish the Precure off.
スーパー戦隊における敵幹部の
あとは任せたわ。実は悪者どもの超鉄板敗北フラグだ。
More villains need to watch Akiba Ranger.
So yeah, Hibiki managed to talk the book down, and of course, they managed to regain their G-clefs. With their powers back, they just need to take back the notes from Noise to reconstruct the melody of happiness. They set off for Majorland by...
調べの館が浮いているの？
The tone of this episode is all over the place.
Noise arrives in Majorland and starts petrifying the whole kingdom.
At least I think he is. It's kind of hard to tell since the animation has gone back to being very stilted.
He then reached Aphrodite, who was going to contact the Precure.
それにどうせ
パルセット。お前は黙っている。
Okay, cliche villain mistakes aside, I actually really like Noise as a character.
Unfortunately, the follow-up to that great line doesn't quite match up when the Precure arrive, and then they proceed to recap almost all of the backstory we already know. Combine that with an over 2-minute recap of the previous episode that played at the beginning of this one, and you've got an episode that's fairly light on story. Granted, there is still kind of awesome stuff like Gotokuchi coming in on the...
Let's see, I kind of want to say it's like the white base, but it is powered by music, so it's kind of like the Macross, but it doesn't transform into a giant mech. Let's just call it the Eternal. It fires a pink beam anyway.
But even with Super Robot Wars as combination attacks, it isn't quite enough. And in an actually well done scene, Otokuchi is sealed away and Aqua is forced to watch, unable to save him. However, the Precure don't let up on the offense and are able to ground Noise, though he does take one more prisoner in the crescendo tone before he's forced to retreat. After this, Noise needed a boost to heal up his wounds, and he found one by...
Okay, this guy is officially my favorite Precure villain ever.
Thus, he continued his attack on Majorland, during which he does explain his motivations, but we'll save talking about that for a little later. Right now, Noise was looking to absorb even more power. He went for Hibiki, only to be saved by the remainder of the trio, who had seen their old friend become bird food. They're taking in place of Hibiki, and Noise begins to change as well.
This isn't even his final form.
Honestly, I'm just glad we can hear his Frieza voice clearly now.
Though he did absorb previous villains, so he's kind of more like Cell in that regard. Why hasn't Norio Wakamoto play a Precure villain yet? I mean, he's just playing a belt this season. I think he has the time.
Anyway, Noise Fall Down mode unsurprisingly decimates the Precure, tanking their finishers all the while mocking them. He eventually makes his way to Aphrodite and the remaining citizens of Majorland, and while they do put up a brave last stand, they're ultimately silenced too. The penultimate episode to this series sees Noise fully explain his motivations and origins. In the previous episode, he only said he wanted to create perfect peace by silencing everyone, which, yeah, that pretty much sounds like their standard villain fare, where they say they're doing it for everyone's benefit, when really it's just them spouting their own dead-end ideals.
What's the point? Don't you see it's all gone? Everything you were, everything you stood for.
But in Noise's case, there was a little more to it than that. As it turns out, he was in fact the living embodiment of human sadness and in fact hated his own existence. Thus, by removing the human element, he would also cease to exist, which was his ultimate goal.
Seriously, where was this guy when we had to put up with these bozos for most of the season?
Hell, even the hot-headed Hibiki was moved by this guy's conundrum and couldn't bring herself to fight him. However, she quickly shook off her trepidation after Hami actually did something and jumped right into Noise's black hole chest and started singing the melody of happiness in order to purify all of the corrupted notes inside of him. Yeah, as much as I'm not a Hami fan, I will admit, this was an awesome act. With Noise weakened, the Precure go all out in a fairly impressive final battle. Yeah, the animation wasn't exactly up to snuff, with the perspective looking really off at times. But I will admit, I kind of like how it basically turned into a mech fight. Seriously, you can't tell me these things don't look or act like funnels. In the end, they defeat Noise by accessing some super forms that I'm sure we'll never see again, and even manage to befriend the dude before he fades away. Again, that whole Nanoha Takamachi school of magical girls thing. The final episode acts entirely as an epilogue. Hami, Trios the Minor, and the notes were released from within Noise. However, the trio were still petrified, while Hami fell into a coma. And even though they could reconstruct the melody of happiness and Ellen could sing it, she didn't because of some very contrived reasons.
それにあんなに体を張ってくれたハミンを差し置いて私が歌うことなんかできないわ。
Yeah, you know guys, when countless lives are on the line, maybe you should put aside the stupid cat worship for a minute.
But nope, they first have to wake up Hami by somehow entering into her dreams and serenading her into waking up. Yeah, as if this anime hasn't already put this mascot character on a high enough pedestal.
マスコットの分際で出し抜きやがった。
So she sings the melody and restores everything back to normal. Aqua is reunited with her parents. Trios the Minor remain annoying idiots. And hey, everyone, Conte doesn't even bother to question why they've traveled at least a day into the future considering Noise attacked on Christmas night. This town has become way too jaded to all of these monster attacks. Still, everything wraps up nicely, and hey, even Noise has reverted back to being Pichon. And even though his existence remains one that embodies all the sadness of the world, he's come to accept it as the cross he will bear, as even then, there's still a little bit of happiness to be found in the deepest of despair, bringing this series to a close.
私たちはまだまだ変われる。新しい明日に向かって変身するのよ。
Sweet Precure is a very middle of the road season for me. I mean, it's not bad by any means, but there's also a lot wrong with it that prevents it from being great in my books.
Now granted, I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as some make it out to be. This series had an uphill battle to overcome between a tragic event that led to many rewrites, and following up on one of the most well-received magical girl anime of the early 2010s didn't make things all that easy for them. Personally, I don't think it's fair to compare this to Heartcatch.
I mean, it's not as though they were trying to recapture the magic of that show by bringing back the same director and hitting as many similar plot points as possible. Yeah, your time will come soon enough.
Besides, to be quite frank, I think there are some other inherent flaws in the show's structure that probably would have prevented it from being one of my personal favorites anyway. Before we get there though, let's take a look at some of the more positive aspects of the show, in particular its visuals. While not boasting the most fluid animation in all of Precure, I gotta say, I do like the designs of the show, both in terms of the characters and the settings. Both have very bright and vibrant colors that stand out without stinging your retinas. Kannon is probably one of the most well-designed locations in all of Precure. It's such a fun, inviting town that has a very practical layout to it. Certainly better than a place that has one too many bakeries. Most of the characters, especially our heroines, look great. Sure, they look a tad bit too old to be middle schoolers. Aqua actually looks more like one than them. But they still look good, and each have a decent amount of expressions. They especially look great in their Precure forms with some very cute outfits.
What can I say? I really like Philly skirts. Don't judge me.
However, most of the villains, not named Noise or Siren, all looked pretty bad. I mean, Noise had some really cool sleek designs in all of his forms, while the other baddies all, well... Overall, really good stuff, just with some outliers who we'll examine more soon enough. Sound-wise, I would hope a music-themed Precure season would have some nice tunes, and sure enough, it does! The soundtrack of the season not only has a great variety and some great instrumentals, but many of them live up to their names. The Miracle Beltier themes have some strong, encouraging beats to them. The Harmony of Friendship is a perfect reflection of the bond Hibiki and Conte share, and the Melody of Happiness is appropriately a powerful and uplifting tune. Probably the only one that I would say is off is the Melody of Sorrow.
Yeah, I know it's supposed to be a sad, demoralizing tune, but personally I think it sounds awesome. What do you guys complain about?
Story is unfortunately where stuff starts to go astray. Now, as I've said, some of this couldn't be helped. The country wasn't in the clear state of mind, so they did have to make some hasty rewrites. However, while these were problematic rewrites, I don't think they were the main issue here. Because it's clear, certain plot points were penciled in long beforehand, and all of them suffered from a little thing called plot contrivance.
For instance... Why didn't Hibiki and Conte realize their school had more than one entrance with trees in front of them? Why did Mephisto go into the evil forest alone? Why would Tommy suddenly trust Siren in spite of not trusting her an episode earlier? Why was Costello chosen as Noise's main henchman? Why am I suddenly wearing a different color bandana? All of the answers to these and more is because the script demanded it.
I mentioned before that Toshio Ono had worked on stuff before this, but I forgot to point out that they were mostly episodic comedies. As a result, while his early character work for Hibiki and Kanade was good, the actual plot written around them was always flimsy, at least when he had episode writing credit, as he was just not used to writing for more serialized shows.
Still, just because some of those plot points weren't as well thought out as others, it doesn't mean that those good points weren't pretty fantastic.
There was stuff like Noise's backstory, which we'll get to when we talk about the character himself, and of course, I thought the final message was great. Our lives are like a symphony, and the world is a giant suite where we can have it played. We'll experience many high and low points, but just like a great symphony, we can't just ignore the parts we don't like. We learn from our mistakes, grow stronger by overcoming difficult trials, and most of all, learn how to appreciate all of the positive things like friends, family, and yes, music. While I do think they could have done a little more with this theme, like actually acknowledge the pros of the Melody of Sorrow, seriously, Noise gets redemption, yet the other embodiment of sadness is just pushed to the side to make room for the one and only Melody of Happiness. That's just kind of counterintuitive to this whole theme you've got going here is all I'm saying. But whatever, the theme is still present throughout most of the series, so I won't complain that much. The story may lack some significant serialization, but the ideas they try to get across are still strong. Characters, unfortunately, are far more mixed bag. Let's start off with the biggest elephant in the room, the villains. In case I didn't make it obvious, aside from two of them, I really did not care for these villains. Starting off with the first major villain, let's talk Mephisto.
Actually, here's a crazy question. Why is he named Mephisto?
I mean, I get that they're from a different dimension and everything, but it's also clear that they've taken influence from our world, in particular Greek mythology. So why would any parent name their kid after a devil from German folklore? Then again, a lack of subtlety pretty much defines this character. He is just so over the top, and while that is a common trait of kid show villains, and especially of toy villains, they really overdid, and as a result, it's hard to take him seriously as a legit threat. Much of that likely comes from the actor's really goofy delivery of the character. Which is a shame because Kenyu Hoiuchi is a longtime voice actor who can sound really damn cool and even threatening. Yet, for whatever reason, he sounded like Mako's dad throughout most of this. And while there is merit to more comedic villains, he really doesn't do much of anything, just sits around and orders his minions to do stuff while speaking in that really goofy voice. As a result, his subsequent face turn lacked any real punch to it, at least on his part, because we never really were endeared to his character. Speaking of which, why was he never reprimanded for his actions that almost led to the destruction of his kingdom? Even Doki Doki Precure addressed this issue, but nope, the people of Majorland are a-okay with letting this bozo rule them again.
This is bad comedy.
That clip also applies well to Trios the Minor.
While they actually had the potential to be entertaining comedic villains like Team Rocket or their seasonal successors, they just came off as more annoying than anything else. Mostly because of that stupid singing. Not helped by the fact that they just did not get that much in the way of actual characterization, other than just being goons for the next big bad guy. I mean really, what did Baritone contribute other than a couple of Monsters of the Week? Literally, he only made 2 negatones in total. Though to be fair, Basham did become somewhat of a standout of the group. Even when Simon was around, he was pretty much the leader of the group and did come up with some good plans. And he was on the verge of pulling a Starscream on more than one occasion, which would have been interesting. So then, why was all that momentum swept aside to make room for Falsetto to become Noise's one true emissary? Really, even if it would have been predictable, I do think Basham should have become Noise's emissary. At least with that, there would be a logical progression to it, and I'd be able to take at least one member of this group seriously as opposed to none.
Still, those idiots aside, the actual big bad of the series pretty much evened things out for the villains, and he only appeared in the final 11 episodes of the show.
But really, that's just how amazing of a villain Noise was. As I said, I loved all of his designs, even the silly roly-poly bird thing, and major kudos to Ryusei Nako for likely straining his voice by portraying this thing. And once he did achieve his later forms, not only did he sound threatening, but brought an incredible air of class to the villains that was sorely lacking throughout the entire series. Best of all, unlike many Precure final bosses, he was actually more than just some evil jerk and actually fell into somewhat of a gray area. A very dark gray area, but still gray nonetheless. And while his methods were certainly beyond extreme, his beliefs weren't unfounded based off of his origins. He was a being born from human sorrow, and while he knew happiness existed, he was simply unable to ever come in contact with it. And without any happiness to complement his sorrow, he was only ever able to experience the negative connotations that came from sadness. When in fact, sadness could serve as the beginning act to some much brighter times. Noise was a tragic villain done right, one that you could sympathize with, but still recognize as a threat that needed to be stopped, and then possibly adopt as a pet later. As for side characters, yeah, not much to say here. I mean, some of them were fun, like Seika and Wan, who, if reports are to believe, were created just to be red herrings for the Cure Muse mystery. They even supposedly leaked early sketches of their Precure forms, which looked totally awesome, but were also totally fake. While others were plain out insufferable or totally superfluous. And while Aphrodite was somewhat active during the latter half of the series, she was still mostly just there. Her father, on the other hand, fared much better. A man of few words, Otokuchi pulled off the mentor role really well without even revealing himself as one until much later into the series. He was constantly testing the Precure's worth as heroines with simple yet engaging little tests, as well as some good sage advice. Moreover, unlike many of his contemporaries, it was clear that he was always proactive, helping the Precure gather notes, as well as building his Eternal knockoff. Yeah, the thing was silly and really didn't accomplish much in the end, but the effort was appreciated. Combine that with the fact that he was very supportive of his granddaughter while she was going through probably the most out there case of parents separating ever, and you've got one of my favorite mentor characters in all of Precure. On the opposite end, let's discuss the character whom I've made it no secret I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of comments saying how wrong I am for not liking her because she's cute and voiced by Sailor Moon. And to all those guys, I have one question. How does she hold up as an actual character?
Yeah, I've already mostly gone over my issues with Hummy's character arc, or lack thereof, in part 2 of this review. And normally I wouldn't really be barred by a fairy character not getting a lot of development. They're just there to support the Precure and of course sell toys. Normally they're not there to help move the plot along all that much. Hummy, however, had no such excuse. She played a major part in Ellen's arc and the final battle with Noise. As such, she needed at least some inkling of development. Some bit of actual personality to latch onto other than happy-go-lucky and, "Here, Siren, take all of our notes!" Which she did get occasionally when Toshio Ono wasn't writing. She could be funny, satirical, and even kind of sensitive to other people's feelings. But for whatever reason, the head writer did not give her the personality she needed when it really counted. While certainly not the worst mascot character ever, it's just frustrating when it's clear there were ways of turning her into a more fleshed out and likable character. Especially when she needed to play such prominent roles. Thankfully, the actual main characters of the show do round things up for the better. Let's start off with the last to join and probably my personal favorite, Ako Shiabe. From the start, I really liked her. Kid characters, especially in toy-related properties, are seldom likable in any way, and are often the worst part in otherwise great shows. Yet, interestingly enough, the inverse can apply too, like with Kotaro being one of the best rangers in a subpar season, or here with Ako. Their contemporaries often fail because creators write them as one of two extremes. They're either totally insufferable little brats who no one wants to emulate, or are too perfect to the point it makes you wonder why bother with the whole kid thing in the first place. Aqua, in my opinion, strikes a good balance of these two, mostly because she's a textbook case of a child who grew up a little bit too fast. Aqua just had a lot on her plate, and really, what child wouldn't when their dad is essentially possessed by the devil? Though interestingly enough, as a possible subversion to one of those earlier examples, she tried to deal with her whole situation by taking on a more adult appearance, only to realize she needed to embrace who she was. When she did, her pure innocence truly managed to shine, and even allowed her to sidestep some horrible cliches. Seriously, if anything from this show, I think this was the most awesome scene in the whole damn thing. While starting off as mostly just a supporting character, she probably became the most fleshed out character in the whole series. With believable motivations and just the right amount of maturity to rightfully call out her teammates' immaturity, Aku is the kind of cynical yet well-meaning magical girl we need more of.
高くても大丈夫だから。そのブーツ、黒ミューズの時の。
The first 6 ranger of the season, Siren, aka Ellen Kurokawa, was also good, but not quite as good. As many have pointed out, including myself, Ellen's arc borrowed a lot from Setsuna's, and while characters should be judged by their own merits, when you take that much, it becomes inevitable that comparisons will arise. And yeah, Setsuna's arc wins hands down. Let's first address the biggest difference between the two. Setsuna's arc didn't involve brainwashing, or at least wasn't as overt. Setsuna was more than likely born into Labyrinth after Mobius took over, and therefore was raised from birth into believing serving him was her only purpose in life. It took love a lot of effort to make her realize she was living under an oppressive dictator. And when Setsuna decided to turn her back on her god essentially, it was totally of her own volition. Ellen, on the other hand, was brainwashed twice and broke free because Hami gave her a few overly sappy speeches.
Riveting.
You see what I mean when I say I hate brainwashing as a plot device? It almost always detracts from a character's arc. I mean, there are slight exceptions, but we'll save that for another day. As is, Ellen's redemption arc does feel like a watered down version of Setsuna's, as there's really nothing much she needs to repent for. Yeah, she got a little jealous, but the villains had to brainwash her twice just to keep her under their control. I'd say things were a little bit out of her control at that point. Now, with all that said, Ellen herself was at least a very fun character. Even when she was surrounded by the antithesis to comedy, she still came off as a legitimately funny antagonist, mostly because she didn't make a total fool of herself. As a protagonist, while she did become a little bit too much of a goober, she still entertained regardless. Most of all, I appreciate that she was putting honest effort into becoming a better person. Seriously, don't just take up Zazen for the hell of it. Overall, while lacking some development because of all the brainwashing nonsense, Ellen was a fun character regardless of which side she was on, and as a Precure,
心のビートはもう止められないわ。
yeah, she was cool. Next up, we have Conte Minami, the best Patisserie Precure to never actually join that team, thankfully. No, but seriously, she was probably the character I related to the most personally. Much like Shinpachi from Gintama, I do tend to gravitate towards the characters who are the voice of reason, even though they may come off just as erratic at times when they go into full fanboy or girl mode. That aside, I do like that she was passionate about her hobbies. While she did like music like the rest of her teammates, her true passion was clearly baking. Being probably the second best baker in all Precure, she had dedicated a lot to refining her craft. These tendencies did make her somewhat neurotic at times, leading to her becoming obstinate and short-tempered. But ultimately, she did have good intentions and just needed to work on her delivery. Really, I kind of wish we got more episodes focused on her passion for baking and the struggles she had to go through, because those were the episodes where her kindness and sincerity managed to shine through, even when the rest of the episode was pretty bad. Sadly, the show isn't Kira Kira, and Kanade was criminally underused in my opinion. Hell, she even showed signs of having an inferiority complex, and that kind of went nowhere after just one episode. Nonetheless, she is a nice, relatable character who helped to provide some of the best laughs of the season. The other half that helped bring the best laughs was, of course, the pink of the season, Hibiki Hojo. Hibiki, alongside Love, are often considered to be the most hot-headed Precure leaders ever. Both are very impulsive and don't exactly have a lot working upstairs. However, both also benefit from their lack of book smarts by being quick on their feet. In Hibiki's case, it lets her be a little bit more sensitive towards other people's feelings. Granted, it doesn't work all the time, but at least it does when it really counts. I just kind of wish her character-focused episodes could have also hit when it counted. Yeah, I think I get what they were trying to do with her here, show that her sensitivity to understand, or rather harmonize with others, stems from her love of music that, in spite of a past trauma, never truly died. The problem is that Hibiki's episodes aren't paced out all that well. They either feel rushed or end up sharing too much screen time focusing on other characters. As a result, the lessons she learns feel really shoehorned in, not helped by the fact that she learned more than one lesson from worst Precure dad ever. Seriously, we've had 2 awesome Precure dads recently, so what's your excuse, dude? Sure, whatever. But yeah, my biggest problem with Hibiki is that I feel she just didn't struggle enough to earn those life lessons. I'm not saying I dislike the character, far from it, I'm just not a fan of the stories built around her. Still, as a leader and heroine, she's great, energetic yet not reckless, and always tries to find the best solution. If her character-focused episodes were a little better, or the people she learned from were at least a little better, I think she could be a contender for my favorite leader Precure ever. As is though, Hibiki is a fun character, and the more I can hear her bad English, the happier I'll be.
Oh my god!
Oh my god! And thing is, Hibiki always worked better when she was a Conte and vice versa. Yeah, while these two don't quite work as singles acts, together they make one of the best tag teams in all of Precure. They had great chemistry and made very clear that they need each other. And when they added in their 6 Rangers, they probably had one of the most solid team dynamics in all of Precure. Definitely a case of the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, but damn is it a nice whole. And perhaps that's the best way I can describe Sweet Precure. While parts of it are a very mixed bag, when it all comes together, it makes for a very decent, watchable season. Though I can't recommend it wholesale to anyone new to the franchise. I can say that if you're entrenched in it like I am, then it's probably worth checking out. Hopefully the tunes of this magical girl team will be able to resonate with you in more ways than one.
With all that said, look forward to next time as we start covering the movies attached to this season, starting off with Deluxe. Really? You're not even gonna wait until my closing catchphrase. Alright. What is it this time? Oh. So, we meet again for the last time.